It recognizes our belief in God, our country, not just individuals, our country, our founding fathers codified this in the documents that founded this country. Our reliance, our belief in God, and our reliance upon God. Of that, there's just no debate on that. You may like it, may not like it. Declaration of Independence, we find these truths to be self-evident, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, of which are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It goes on in the Constitution to say we are putting together this Constitution in a preamble to secure the blessings, not only for ourselves, for posterity. And that Constitution followed with a Bill of Rights that enumerated those godly rights given to man, including the very first one, which was the right to believe in God and to express that belief anytime, anywhere, including the public square.
33 million. It's proven to the money investors that people want something to feed their souls, not just their worst desires.
Absolutely.
And
yes, indeed.
This kind of sums up my entire dialogue career on the heat of the night. You ready for this? Okay, this is it. My 7 years on the heat of the night. My dialogue all summarized in this. Get right on it, Chief.
Captain Skinner, but Bubba's my name. I like my iced tea sweet and my women the same. I'm your brown-haired badge here in little old Sparta, but nobody's bigger or tougher or smarter. If you're looking to fight, best not be with me. Gonna be held tight, well now we'll just see. You never know in the heat of the night on TNT.
We can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
What the hell's going on out here? Everybody's driving out there. Nobody. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
So 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable. Free at last! Free at last!
Hey, welcome to Alan Autry. No retreat on Taco Tuesday. My goodness. Love Taco Tuesday. And one of these days, I'd like to have a taco again, Robert. I'm going to pick them up. I'm going to make a commitment here, which I'll probably forget.
You're probably going to get any.
I'm going to go to Roberito's Tacos right around the corner. Great
place.
tacos. Let's
Great
plug
place.
them. They don't sponsor the show, but we're going to plug them because
Great place.
a good taco is a good taco.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So Taco Tuesday.
Sam's Taco.
Goodbye, Ruby Tuesday.
On this day.
Who would change the name? Goodbye, Taco Tuesday. I'm just in a singing mood, baby.
Don't
Come
make
on,
it
man.
You're a better actor than a singer.
We don't. Well, that's not saying a lot.
See,
I'm a horrible singer. I didn't know I was that bad of a singer. Dad.
I always like to be the straight man for you.
Come, Dad, come. Hey, before we get started with the hard news,
Yeah.
I was riding a bike, and I think I came up with a joke that will go down into Dad Joke Hall of Fame.
Okay.
It's a dad joke.
Great.
But it's a good one. I almost fell off my bike. And usually you come up with these ideas for scripts because I'm a writer as well. I actually sold a couple of scripts, 20th Century Fox. And
Yeah.
I got lucky. But you usually do that, and you wake up the next morning, and you say the joke.
It's all a dream.
Look at the script. No, you look at the script and go, man, this is awful. But this is a good one.
Okay.
You ready for this?
I'm ready.
What do you call a cowboy fish and a cowgirl fish that get married? Ready? Coy Rogers and Scale Evans.
Yeah, okay.
Huh? Oh, come on. Oh, come on, Jeremy Sullivan. That's a good joke. Coy Rogers and Scale Evans.
Okay.
Oh, jeez, I was expecting a bigger response.
Well, you know,
okay, let's move
You know
along.
what you have to do, though? You're going to have to explain who Roy Rogers and Dale Evans were.
I know.
We-
Well, I guess I'm speaking to the still kid in the hearts of 80-year-olds out there.
The older crowd.
All right.
Hey, by the way.
Yes. Well, you just went back there. All right, go ahead.
No,
I've
that
been
was,
waiting all night to tell that. Just Phil,
we'll let the
flatter
audience-
than a freaking pancake.
Well, how about we let the audience decide if that was a good joke or not?
Yeah, please email it in. What do you call? It's worth repeating.
Okay.
A cowboy fish and a cowgirl fish that are married. Coy Rogers and Scale Evans. I think. Okay, let's move along. Hey, listen.
What?
Joe Biden and Ron DeSantis are working together nicely. Did you hear what I just said?
Well, I want to hear what else you've got to say about that.
Ron DeSantis and Joe Biden are working really well together, it appears, preparing for Hurricane Ian.
Hey, you know what?
I mean, think about that, what's just said. Is that said at all?
I don't think that.
DeSantis
I think
and Biden?
You're the first ones ever said that, I think.
Well, that's the first time they've ever worked together. In fact, you can go back. When's the last time Republicans, Democrats, other than these crazy spending bill, which not everybody was on board with that by a long shot. But this one is when it seems like all the partisan swords have been sat down for a while. Sure, both of them are looking for political grandstanding, and Biden's looking for a chance to show leadership, for the midterms coming up. DeSantis is sitting there going, I got a hurricane category 3 bearing down my neck. I better not blow this. But also I'm not going to be so cynical as to say that those two are not deeply concerned about the safety of people in Florida, because
Right.
Pearl, a lot of folks, especially old folks, man, you hear about it all the time. They burrow in and they say, well, we're just going to ride it out.
Yeah.
They did that in Katrina. They actually did it back. Remember back in the day when we were youngins and the volcano went off? And it was a volcano someplace in the world. And they told these people.
In Alaska?
Well,
that was an earthquake.
No, this was a
back in
big one. I
59.
forget the name of it. You can Google it later. But there were people down there.
Mount
near
St.
that,
Helens?
I think that was. And they told
In
the people,
Washington?
I believe it was. And they told the people that were living close to that, get out of there. This thing's going, no, we've been around here 75 years. And they blew up and they're incinerated.
Not anymore.
Gone in an instant. So it looks like, and I saw, and I'll get your response on it. I saw Marco Rubio on TV last night. And I hate Rubio, like Rubio. When it comes to something like this, the guy's smart. He does his homework. He really does. Nobody wants to debate Marco Rubio. He may be philosophically against what some of the stuff he stands for, but he did a lot of deep research on hurricanes because that's his state. Senator from Florida. And he said he spoke some time ago, a couple of years ago, to the experts on the hurricanes. And he says, give me the scenario of the perfect storm, meaning not perfect in that it would be helpful, bring a little rain for agriculture, people can go out surfing and all that. Not that perfect storm, the perfect deadly storm. And that was described to him. Certain things happened. One of the things I remember in what he said was it stays offshore for a while, building, okay? And then because of certain other aspects of its nature, it presents 5 to 7 foot
waves that come in. And he says, you can hide from very high winds. You can go get in a basement, whatever. You can hide, protect yourself somewhat from high winds, but you can't protect yourself from floodwaters. They're dead. You have to get out of there. And it looks like Hurricane Ian has the potentiality to be that perfect storm.
Well, I just saw they're showing some stuff on CNN. Did I just see something saying 150 mile an hour winds by tomorrow? Tomorrow a.m.
That's
right on the tip, Florida.
What? It's Category 3 now.
Right now, yeah.
But we, our thoughts and prayers really go out to.
I wonder how our friend Laura is doing.
Yeah. I think she's hunkered down. She said the other day we had her on the show, and she's not a DeSantis fan, but being the analytical and honest person that she is, when it comes to things like this, she was able to depoliticize the discussion, which some people simply can't do. They can't do it. It's in their DNA so far. You can't have a discussion on the facts and really let the facts, the search for the facts, be a genuine goal of the discussion, because the facts really don't matter unless it fits the narrative inside the brains of the two partisans that may be doing, battle to the end, death to the end, fighting rather than calling it debate.
Yeah, it becomes an emotional.
But she's right.
Well, if you can keep the emotion out of it, and that's very difficult to do on any topic of importance in these days, that's tough to do.
But she was able
to have a cogent, intelligent conversation, debate, if you will, whatever.
And she was able to do that and say, DeSantis is doing a good job. He says, I got to hand it to him on some of the COVID stuff, and she is not a fan of his.
No, she's not.
And we got to get back to some of that. And you see nobody, no less than Bill Maher becoming a voice of reason. Yes, that Bill Maher.
That's scary to think about.
That Bill Maher. I mean, he's the only one on the left really taking on this crazy woke ideology.
He can't stand it.
He's far from being a Republican. He'll never be that. He's a classic old school liberal, which this country can live with. And I would go as far as to say this country can prosper with, just like true conservatives. Not out there, wacko conservatives don't want any government. They don't even want to have a driver's license imposed upon them. Yeah. They just don't want nothing. Just and it's anyway. It was very refreshing, and we do pray. I have a pretty good feeling because they live with these hurricanes so much in Florida, and even though this has the potential to just be a gigantic, maybe one of the biggest ones in the modern era that they've had to face, I think they're going to come out of the best they can. And I guess the best advice this little show can have, because we do have listeners in Florida. Listen to the folks and get out of there. Just if they tell you to go. What are you out? You leave for a week or so and it's not as bad. You can say, okay, I could have stayed, but what do you do? But what if it is as bad as they say? What if? And this is one of those what ifs you just don't play around with.
No.
Leave, go stay with relatives. I'm sure they have the pipeline set up in Florida for people to stay in shelters and stuff. So, we are. Well, you know what? I don't want to keep Laura hanging on the phone for a long time. She's calling in on nuclear arms with Russia. It's not really on our list, but it's free for all Taco Tuesday, isn't it?
Well, she's always got good information.
All right, let's go to Laura. Laura, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm a little worried now.
In what regard?
Because we're going to get the northeast quadrant of this hurricane, and that means we're going to get about 10 to 15 inches of rain.
Oh, boy.
And tornadoes. Because it spins counterclockwise. When you look at it, from 1 to 3 o'clock is the most dangerous quadrant outside the eye. And that's what's going to hit us.
Oh, boy. 1. So what are you going to do?
I'm going to sit in my house and drink margaritas and play Trivial Pursuit.
Laura, you get the heck out of there. Tell Elon Musk to fly one of his spaceships over there, get on it, and go fly off to Mars for a couple of weeks.
I've got a whole house generator. I've got a metal roof. I've got 220-mile-an-hour hurricane sustainable windows and doors. and I'm high and dry.
But
So
Laura, what if the floodwaters come and hit you?
floodwaters ain't going to come hit me. We had a 14-foot storm surge with Hurricane Matthew,
Okay.
and I had some branches down in my backyard. That was it.
Okay. Well, you've been through this. It's not your first rodeo, as they say, in regards to
I've been through about 20 of them.
to hurricanes. You know,
2004, we had 4 back to back.
you know, if I was living in Florida, it wouldn't be the hurricanes that would make me nervous. It'd be the gators. The thought.
Oh, believe me.
The
Listen,
thought
I was
that
talking to you on the phone one day when one was in my backyard.
Oh man,
no
those
way.
I see one
No
gator in
way.
my backyard, man. I'm moving to Kansas.
Oh yeah,
And she had babies.
I'm as
Tornadoes.
far away from
now you got tornadoes.
and now you got tornado. Yeah, but
Kansas.
you get one of those coming. You don't know when an alligator is going to emerge from some water and tear off your leg. You know, and how an alligator. Have you checked? Wait a minute. I got to tell. Have you studied how an alligator kills you? They take you underwater.
It's called a death roll.
They roll you around, and they saute
and they
you,
stuff
and
you under a rock.
yes, and if they get full, they don't throw you away like a shark or whatever. They stuff you under a rock and come back and eat you later.
That's what they do. They don't eat in the moment. They actually stuff it under something to keep it stationary and protect it.
They're not like us.
Until the meat softens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're not like us. We eat at the moment, me and Pearl. That's no, but I just don't understand. And that's strange coming from a guy who was born in Louisiana. But I wasn't raised my childhood in Louisiana. Probably I wouldn't be concerned with gators. But I did a movie called Southern Comfort, and we were in the Louisiana swamp for 2.5 months, and it was during the winter. And the guide was out there, and I'm looking, and I'm just thinking, gator. We're out there, but we're supposed to be National Guardsmen, brave, and I'm just thinking gator. I can't even remember my lines. I only had like 5 of them. 5 lanes.
Oh, that was with Powers Booth.
Powers Booth,
Great actor.
Keith Carradine, and some people think it's one of the best movies they've seen. Not based on my performance, but I'm out there, and he says, I said, and he's Cajun. And I said, hey,
Could you understand what he was saying?
Well, yeah, but I said, are we in gator area? Are we in gator? Because we had to get out and slog in the bog and out of the pirogues they had. We were all in pirogues. That's a little canoe. And he goes, no, it's winter. Winter, gators don't come in winter. I said, what do you mean they don't come in winter? Yeah, but they're asleep. They're asleep out there. And I said, well, what happens if you wake one up? Do they get pissed? I mean, they get mad? Oh, you don't want to wake a gator up. I'm thinking,
That had to be reassuring.
Oh, I'm looking over at the director. And of course it started. 9 dudes out there. They would go up, talk about gators. They'd go up behind somebody they knew was grab them by the leg. Gator from the guy, jump up in the air. And I was
Don't
one of
want
those.
to mess with no gator.
But it was 3 months of just being puckered.
Listen, living here is like living in Jurassic Park. Okay?
Oh.
In the wintertime, do you want to know what our freeze advisory is? Watch out for falling iguanas.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I read about that last year.
I don't like iguanas either. Put me in a pen with a raging bull, literally, not Robert De Niro, a real bull. I was raised on a farm. I can get in there with bull and come at
Falling
me.
iguanas.
I'll sidestep him, head fake him, all day long. People go, how do you do that? But
Alan, you're losing your mind.
what's
the
that?
Snakes, oh my gosh. My neighbor screams at me and asks me to come over and ID a snake that she found in her yard. She hands me a bucket of mincemeat. And I said, could you have saved at least a piece so I could identify it for you? Because I panicked with the machete.
Oh, good for her.
Wow.
I'm going to get in trouble with the animal lovers, but I love animals. But a snake?
Not a snake.
I will. At Riverdale, when I was driving around with Dan Alsop, we saw a snake slither off the road, and we went out there and ran over and purposely went on the side of the road to get him. I know. I'm just being honest. It's truth on the table.
My dog brings them in as gift snakes.
Huh?
My dog, she's half Chihuahua, half Rat Terrier, and they're vermin hunters, Rat Terriers are. She's brought me, I don't know, probably 30 black snakes.
Oh,
brought them in the house.
I would have a little sit down with that dog. So let's have a little discussion here.
It's a present for mommy.
You better start eating those dogs because you're not getting fed here anymore if you bring them home.
He kills them first. He shakes them and kills them.
Okay, let me ask you this question before we go to break. We talked about. You're racing the nuclear arms. Yeah, hit us with that. the Russian nuclear arms deal?
Okay. His name is, he was the former president of Russia, and he's currently the chief of the National Security Council in Russia. His name is Dmitry Medvedev.
Oh, yeah.
This is what he announced 4 hours ago.
Former president, isn't he? Medvedev
He was president.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Go ahead.
And now he's kind of positioning himself. This is why I wonder if maybe some of these rumors about Putin's health aren't true, because he seems to be taking a much more visible, vocal stance than he has in the past. He's 57 years old, and I really wonder if maybe he's not trying to position himself in case there is something going on with Putin. But anyway, here we go. He announced this 5 hours ago, and he said that the NATO alliance and Joe Biden and UK Prime Minister Liz Truss constantly threaten us with terrifying consequences if Russia uses nuclear weapons. And he said that they would retaliate with any means necessary, including nuclear weapons, if they felt that the existence of their state was threatened in any way. That includes their proclaimed annexed areas of the Donbass region. They will do anything necessary without hesitation, without asking permission, or without any long consultation. This is not a bluff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I believe them. I believe them.
I hear you when you talk about going to the peace table, with peace talks. But I want to ask you, and I'm not being funny, I'm not being facetious, and I'm trying to be sarcastic. When you have someone who's put a nuclear weapon on the table as an option, there's no such thing as a bluff when you have a loaded gun and I just wanted to scare somebody. How many people are in prison for murder because they didn't mean to kill anybody during a robbery? It's not a bluff, it's a possibility. And when you have reached that precipice, that's an all or nothing state of mind. And you can't negotiate with an all or nothing state of mind, unfortunately, because no matter what we offer, he's going to want more. And we've blundered this from day one, because the moment those troops began amassing on the border of Ukraine, the United States government and NATO allies should have quietly gone to India. They should have gone to Turkey, because Erdogan, let's be honest, he's a needy ex-girlfriend. He just wants somebody to love him and pay attention to him. He don't care who it is. And we could have gone to him and said, you're a NATO ally, we need your help. Then you quietly go to Mohammed bin Bonesaw, you go to China, you go to India, and you say, you know what, we know you got stuff, we got stuff you want. We're willing to make a deal with you in writing if you freeze him out when we do our sanctions. You violate that, we're putting sanctions on you, and you ain't getting nothing. Mm-hmm. And if they'd gotten that deal, then when they did the sanctions, they would have had an impact. But because they didn't do any of that, these sanctions mean nothing to him, because he went and he formed these alliances. Whether they're going to hold in the long term is irrelevant. For the moment, they're sustaining him. And we could have prevented that, and we didn't.
Well,
so at this point, where do we go?
Well, first of all, I understand what you're saying. Excuse me. And historically, it would have been something, that scenario you laid out would have been, and in some cases it is accurate, I feel. And this is only my opinion. And you just articulated yours very clearly and very strongly. It makes a lot of sense. Here's the rub with me. We have never been in a situation like this so historically weak in order to exert leverage. Back in the day, we were the manufacturing country of the world. We made things, we exported things. Every other country, pretty much, economy was based on a trade with America. That is not the case anymore. It's China. China has us by the proverbial short hairs. Over the years, and they've been very smart, they have taken over the manufacturing base. In fact, I'll never forget when Bill Clinton said this. I shuddered. He said those jobs, meaning manufacturing jobs, the making of things, whether it's lawn furniture or antibiotics or car parts or whatever is made with your hands, those jobs, those jobs are going, well, it evolved into the antibiotics. But back then it was the manufacturing, whether it's tires, tennis shoes, whatever, the factories that used to dominate America that are now all closed. And you see all the cities, big cities, Detroit's an example, decimated with closed factories. He said those jobs are going out of America to other countries, and they are never coming back. And that mantra was echoed by people on the left and the right, and particularly by big business, Wall Street, because that fattened their bottom line, because all they saw was dollar signs right in front of cheap labor. Okay, they didn't really care what despot, what dictator was in the country where those tennis shoes were made and being shipped to Nike. They could care less where any of these things were made, what the people, how they were abused. You remember the time back in the day when the far left really cared about sweatshops, children being made to work? Remember that was a big issue for them? You don't hear anything about that anymore. Why? Because they're in bed. Well, they're in bed with the big business, with the Bezos of the world, the Amazons of the world, and the Nikes of the world, because they fund their nonprofits. They make them rich, so you can start an organization called Black Lives Matter, purport to be a watchdog against the oppression and murdering of black people, and then once you get enough money, you leave that nonprofit and buy 3 mansions in a white neighborhood in Beverly Hills. This is what we're at a table basically trying to say, look, we're going to sanction you, and Xi Jinping is going, wait a minute. What are you going to sanction us with? You're going to stop buying our stuff? That's going to hurt your people more than us, because you know what? Our people can't complain. They complain, they get in trouble. I can pay them 10 cents an hour. I can pay them nothing. I can just print more money, manipulate our currency. Russia, don't take their oil. You don't take their gas. Who is that going to hurt? The Russian people. And you pointed it out. The ruble is, I think, not too long ago at an all-time high. The Russian economy is not really being affected. McDonald's pulled out. Now they're selling a hamburger, the Russian version of the McDonald's hamburger.
Starbucks the same way.
Robert, you brought this up. They've already replaced all of these businesses that have pulled out. Mm-hmm. So my point is, Western Europe now is facing the specter of a cold winter where people are going to die. And here's the kicker. Then I want your response. And Pearl, you jump in here, and listeners, you can jump in here. Something very, very interesting is happening in Western Europe. It's tied to exactly what we're talking about. In Britain, this Liz Truss took over. In Italy, Giorgio Meloni, a so-called far right, the farthest right since Mussolini, if you hear the press talk about it, which is a joke. You have Marie Le Pen turning, in France, the electorate on its ear. Although Macron won, she scored bigger than any candidate that's been in conservative thought in the last 10 decades, 100 years, basically. Here's the common denominator. And in Sweden, you have a new leader in Sweden that in all 4 of them, first of all, they happen to be women, which is something to think about, but they're all supply side people that believe in lower taxes, deregulation, and fossil fuels. Okay? They're saying, look, this new Green Deal transferring overnight is going to kill us, literally kill our seniors. They're going to freeze to death. And they're winning elections all over Western Europe. You don't think Putin doesn't see that? You don't think Xi Jinping? They're saying, look, let's hang on here. And here's my final point. When I hear somebody say, a leader that has nukes, saying we will use these nukes, and you historically you see that leader have at least some sense to send a warning to the country of which this threat is being made, basically saying, don't make me do this, but be assured I will if this, and this happens. I know that at least that's a good chance it's not a bluff. Why? Because our own country did it. Harry Truman told the Emperor of Japan, we have this weapon, and it's a bad, bad weapon. You do not want us to drop this weapon. Here's what we have to have you do. You need to do this, or we're going to drop it. Why? Because the integrity, you are an existential threat to the United States. Why? Because you invaded Pearl Harbor. You hit our homeland. We know you have the capability to do this. The Emperor said, you're bluffing. Well, they loaded up Big Boy on Enola Gay, the airplane, and they dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima, and the world changed. But that wasn't enough. They saw the devastation, tens of thousands of people killed, kids, innocent kids mutilated for life, the radiation hanging around for decades killing people. But they dropped another one. We did. A democratically elected, the beacon of democracy, dropped another one on Nagasaki. Why? Because our freedoms were being threatened, and if we didn't respond with everything we had to stop them, that they were going to take over. That was the premise. That's the same exact premise that Putin is telling the people of Russia. If you don't stop NATO now, they're going to be at your doorstep imposing their values on you. They're going to impose your values of gender neutrality. They're going to enjoy of open borders, all the thing of God, taking God out of the country when there's been a resurgence in God in the Soviet Union. People wonder, why is he so popular? Oh, the polls are fixed. The same people who say, oh, yeah, the election of Trump is fixed, you can't trust it, are the same ones going, don't trust these referendums. The referendums are fixed right from the get-go. How do you know? How do you know these referendums? Now, how do you know these referendums are fixed?
People that spoke out against Putin are dead.
But how do they know? Yeah, there's people falling out of windows. I get that. You don't think the CIA's kill people? I'm not an apologist for Putin. I'm just a realist saying, look, this thing is out of hand. Okay. That's all I'm saying, Laura. This war is out of hand, and if you don't stop it now, and I think you got him in a position. Here's where I think you got him. You got him in a position. You give him Donbass, you give him that region, you give him Mariupol, you have the sea there, but you have Zelensky saying all or nothing. All or nothing's going to wind up with a nuke bomb being dropped.
Hold on. Can I interject something?
Yes.
Because while you're screaming about giving away Donbass, you're going to kill the country of Ukraine. They depend on those ports in the Donbass to be, they're exporters. That's how they make their money. If you give him Donbass, it's not going to be enough, because then he's going to want Odessa. Then he's going to want Moldova. They're not going to have any way to feed their people. How are they going to rebuild that country?
Look, here's
about that.
Here's my response to that, and I would agree with you. If we weren't talking about the dropping of a freaking nuclear bomb, okay, people can laugh at all that until it's done. Then when it's done, it'll never happen until it happens. Nobody will ever be that crazy until it happens. Here's my point. Yes, he shouldn't have evaded. He's an evil man. It looks like. I'll let God judge him, but he's sure acting like an evil man. But we can look at what is the long term. We have and I'm for short-term solutions, short-term relief, long-term solutions. Sometimes you have to go for that short-term relief, get an agreement, come back, start rebuilding what you have now, begin negotiations, because I happen to believe that Xi Jinping, who actually has a lot of influence with Russia, and it's in Russia's best interest to help Ukraine after this is over prosper. It is that with agreements, they will have the upper hand. But the point is, you can make a stand on ground that if you don't watch it, here's my only point. You can stand your ground all you want right now, but in a blink of an eye, that ground could be radioactive.
But what you need to understand as well is that when you talk about Putin, you talk about him from your frame of mind.
Sure, that's what
from
we all do.
You can't.
No,
you
I do. No,
that man is a sociopath. That man does not have empathy. That man only wants to serve his own interests, period. So even if we go to this negotiating table, they give him Donbass. Do you know what you're doing? You're telling a narcissistic sociopath, we say, Uncle, we give in. Go ahead. He's gonna go after Moldova. He's gonna go after us.
So let me ask you something then. All right,
in another year.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt because we're running out of time. Okay, say I accept your position. I agree with everything you say. Okay, I think you would agree with me that somewhere along the line, you have to define what victory is. Okay, you have to. Otherwise, it's Vietnam. Pearl and I went through this. A war where they never defined what victory was, so they kept fighting and fighting for decades, and a lot of good people. What is your definition? If you don't negotiate, and my position is Russia's not going to leave there without something, so you got to be coming to the table understanding that. That's my position. What's your position? What's your position?
You're not on the same thinking plane.
No, but what's your position?
He's defined victory, Alan. He's defined it.
No. How do we define it? No. Go off of Putin. You're in Zelensky's mind now, Joe Biden's mind, and Western Europe's mind. Somewhere along the line, and before you even get into a war, you sure as hell better know what victory looks like. Be able to define it. What does it look like? Well, Lloyd Austin has said, to grind the Soviet military to dust, drive Putin back into Russia, and make Russia a non-factor in the world forever. He's defined it. I give him kudos. Now he took some flack from the White House, but that's his position for victory. What would yours be? How would you define it?
The way that I would define it is unknown, because I have to look at all of the variables that we have before us now, because I actually have information from their ministry.
So you just keep fighting and bombing?
That I tried to share with you. And so I know, having read so much about Putin, as much as I possibly can, who we're dealing with, what we're dealing with. And you can't go
how do you
into
defeat
a
him?
meeting with someone who's not defining.
Then how do you defeat him?
The same way you are.
How do you defeat him? The same things were said about Hitler. We defined how to do it. Go over to Europe, fight him, go into Munich, and make him shoot himself in the head in a bunker. What is your knowing Putin? What would you say, advise, if you're advising, and I'm not trying to play gotcha, I'm sincerely wanting to hear this, honestly. What would, for me to chew on tonight, what would you tell Biden? Before you stop fighting, before to stop the guns, to stop the bombs, to stop the missiles, the war, here's what you need to achieve. Biden, Western Europe, and Volodymyr Zelensky. What would you tell them victory looks like? Or what should victory be?
Well, honestly, they're going to have to give him all of Ukraine.
No, what does victory look? No, what does victory look for us, America and Western Europe? We're fighting for us to win the war.
We're not going to have victory. We're not going to have any kind of victory.
Well, why are we fighting? Why are we fighting?
Because they screwed this up from the beginning. Because I understand what you're saying about the trade and
so why wouldn't you go to the table?
How dependent we are. But there's one thing that they still need from us. There is one thing that China still needs from us, and this is why they acquiesce in certain instances with us. World Bank. The United States controls the World Bank, and there is a lot of stuff going on with China with World Bank that we could have ironed out with them.
But we didn't. But we didn't. We didn't.
Arabia wants their own regulator. There are so many things that we could have used in our. We had arrows in our quiver before this began.
Yes, but we're still talking. But we are where we are. Laura, I'm with you.
That opportunity.
I'm with you. We are where we are, though. We are where we are. You said China could put pressure. how do you do that without being at the negotiation table? How do you get pressure being applied? Do you sit back, keep bombing, hope Xi will do it when he said, we have an alliance with Russia forever, and they just signed a deal to do a space station together, and Russia is shipping all that oil that was going to Europe over to China right now? What?
Because I can tell you right now, if Joe Biden met with Xi Jinping and he said, we'll allow Hong Kong to be a vassal state, we'll allow Hong Kong's credit rating to be included in yours, because they are.
Well, why would that? But you're saying,
they have not allowed them to do that.
But you're saying that wouldn't stop a madman.
On billions of dollars to him.
Yeah, but you just told me that Putin's a madman, that nothing's going to stop him. So you're thinking Xi Jinping could stop him from this insane mission of taking over Ukraine, or at least taking Donbass?
May I speak? Please. What I am saying is that if the United States goes to these eastern countries, one of the reasons that they're buying oil and everything from him is because they're getting it at a discounted rate. And then they're going to resell it for a profit. China needs loans that they're not being approved for because they're under investigation for regulatory tampering.
Right.
And they're not allowed to use Hong Kong as a vassal state to improve their credit score. India does not have an independent regulator. They want one. Saudi Arabia does not have an independent regulator. They want one. We can give them those things without causing any detriment to the United States. These are simple, easy measures. And the amount of money that they would then be able to borrow against World Bank would more than compensate for what they're buying from Putin. And all I'm saying is it doesn't even have to be a negotiation. They can say, we're done. We're cutting you off.
So do you think Putin's going to give up?
Okay,
just let me ask you a question on that. Say all of that is done and China cuts off the aid from Putin. Is Putin going to surrender, you think?
I think he won't have a choice because his money's going to dry up.
Well, you're saying now he's a madman. You got to say he's not going to give up.
He's going to be without the resources. He's not going to be able to call up Erdogan.
And so you don't think?
Say, hey,
so you get it
because I got people running in Georgia that won't fight.
Okay, let me just take this scenario. Say that happens. Okay, he's got nobody to help him. He's boxed in the corner. He's a pariah. Okay, and his only hope, and he still believes because he's told his people, and I agree with you. I think he is thinking out there his legacy, whatever. He, like you said, he thinks different than we do. He's cut off the world, and you think he will retreat in shame, go back to Russia without using a battlefield nuke?
I don't think he will. And the reason that I don't think he will is because right now you have to understand that he's isolated himself. He only has a handful of people around him, and they aren't suffering. They aren't suffering. But it's the second their paycheck will come, the second they are affected, they'll turn on him.
So let me ask you this: Do you think at 70?
The Biden administration thought by cutting off the oligarchs, that cuts off Putin's personal money, which is true.
So victory for you.
He has an entire war chest of Russian people's money.
So victory. Just sum this up, and we'll talk more about it because it's fascinating. I mean, it's there. I think it's the biggest existential threat, not just to Russia, United States, and Western Europe, but the world. When you're talking about nuclear weapons. So correct me if I'm. Well, no, we don't have enough time. We got to take a break here in just a second. But so your victory for you would look like China getting a deal with China. China would put pressure on Putin. Keep fighting the war. Keep giving these.
China.
No, okay, but yeah, right. The rest of the world keep sending arms and munitions and billions of dollars to the Ukraine until Putin realizes he has no allies, packs up his army, and goes back to Moscow. That would be victory for you, correct? If I heard you right.
Well, not in that simplistic fashion.
Well, I mean, that's the outcome. Outcomes are pretty simplistic. Either to start in terms of the fighting. To stop the fighting, to stop the war, to stop the hot war, like Iran, Israel, and all these countries that had fought over the Middle East, they had these ceasefires, they had these negotiations, and sometimes they had peace for several years with the Palestinians, and they fight again. but they knew when to pause. Both sides did, to work something out. And yet, yes, you were still going to have Palestinians saying that Israel doesn't have a right to exist, and so Iran's going to be saying the same thing. But they paused for.
That's when you go to the table, Alan. Once he's isolated, once he has nowhere to go, it's like when you try to get a bird out of your house. You have to move very effectively, and you have to close in on them.
Yeah, but the problem is that bird.
That's what you do.
The thing is, though, the worst that bird's going to do is crap on me, not drop a nuke on me.
Well, according to my sister-in-law, that's equivalent.
Laura, we got to go. Thank you for another stimulating conversation. And let me tell you sincerely, I understand where you're going through, but as 70 years, you become a realist, and it's not tuck your tail in and give up or anything. It's just sometimes the situation can be so hot, so out of control, so much at stake that you just say, hold on, let's call a timeout and see what happens. And nobody's willing to do that first. Say, hey, you know what? Let's take a little ceasefire here, and you're not good. And that's all I'm thinking that should happen with all my heart. But I certainly respect your opinion. We're going to take a quick break. Thank you, Laura.
Stay safe, back. Laura.
Love is a burning thing.
You want to go to the Fresno deal?
Yes.
Let's go. You're with the Fresno deal. We'll go right back to you.
Yeah. And I have an on this day.
Oh, yes. We go Taco Tuesday Bobby to take us home. Yeah, I tell you, it's a tough issue, but it's not. It was a buddy of mine said, you act like you're really scared of this nuclear thing. I said, you dang right. For my kids and grandkids, hey, nuke me, I'm gone. I don't want to go up in a nuclear nightmare. But you're assuming we have a history of dropping those things, of using them.
Well, I guess if Putin gets backed into a corner, what do you think he's going to do?
Well,
he's going to use it just like a Wolverine, backed into a corner. Going to use anything at his disposal that he can to get out of that corner.
Do you think Hitler, when they were coming into Munich there and had the capability to drop a bomb, atomic bomb on New York, because they were trying to build one too. They came pretty close to building a nuclear bomb. In fact, I think some of the best scientists that worked on it, they were able to recruit from Nazi Germany. You think he would have used that bomb?
On the U.S.?
Yeah.
Oh, boy, that's tough to say.
Maybe it's not. He was a crazy man.
I would say, well, again, he would have been pushed into a corner.
That's what I'm saying. He's in the bunker.
He would have been pushed into a corner.
Yeah, he says, I got nothing to lose.
And this was a guy who never lived in reality.
Right.
Once the war started.
And a narcissist. A narcissist doesn't care about other people.
He was.
They don't care about blowing up and killing millions. It makes them feel good. Okay, I'm going to go, but I'm going to take half the planet with me.
No qualms at all. Well, I mean, just look at what he did.
You see a lot of leaders that have emerged to lead countries that as you do your research on them, you think, would they have done that? If they had the ability, they were losing, and they had the ability to take the rest of the world or a good chunk with them.
30 seconds?
Would they? It's just like the mass murderer that shoots 50 people, then turns the gun on themselves. Yep. Those mass murderers. And one of these days, the question is Putin like that? Is Putin one of those? He was backed into a corner rather than being ridiculed or be shamed.
10 seconds?
All right, 10 seconds.
Yeah, I think it would.
And as always, Jeremy, great choice of music because, man, I do feel a bad moon arising over in Ukraine. They don't get a handle on this thing, ain't quick.
Not a good
Bobby.
Thing. Yeah.
Let's go from that pleasant subject to crime.
Well, yeah.
In Fresno, but it's something we got. Go ahead, buddy.
And crime obviously affects everyone everywhere. We're just going to talk about Fresno because we seem to have really jumped into a major crime spree here recently. We had talked, 4 people killed this weekend murdered in the city of Fresno, including a teenage mom and her 3-week-old baby shot in the head.
Yeah.
And then 2 more killed out of Mendota in Fresno County, for a total of 6 people in the county over the weekend. I think that raises I had the numbers. I forgot to write. I wrote down a lot of other numbers. I think we had 34 homicides last year, and we've got 45 this year
At this time
in the city of Fresno. Yeah. So I decided to look at some stats, and stats can tell you a lot of things. Sometimes they tell you what you want to know, and sometimes they tell you what you have to know. In Fresno County, in Fresno City, in cities comparable to the size of Fresno, we have crimes that are 57% higher than the national rate for cities our size. 57%. We're even 40% higher than the state of California, which is totally out of control, as we know. Violent crime, we're 51% above the national average. 28.85% above the California average. Now you gotta remember, we have a lot of metro areas in this state, and we're still above that. Property crimes, 58.5% above the national average, and 43% above the California average. Now that's a lot of numbers. Those are a lot of stats. The one thing they do tell you is we have an out of control crime problem in this city. And it's going to get, hopefully it won't get worse, but something has to be done. And I know
it's going to get worse.
I know you had
What's going to stop it?
Well, that's going to be my question to you. I know you had Mayor Dyer in here last week, and you had talked about his trip to Austria and the housing infrastructure and all of that fun stuff. But I think we really need something needs to happen within the police department and the city in concert to really try to get this back under control. And I know what happened when you were in office, and you did the SWAT team with Chief Winchester, and it worked. I think we're probably past the point that we need something comprehensive, just like that, to be enacted again. In the city, because this is totally out of
agree
control.
100%.
So how do we impress upon? Now I know the chief knows there's a problem. Knowing the problem is a start. How do you resolve that? How do you correct that problem? How do you institute programs to get rid of all these gangs and everything, and reduce this crime? Because to be, 57% higher than the national average. Who wants to come to Fresno? Who wants to live in Fresno?
Where do you go?
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, but
here, this is our home.
This is where we live.
And I'm going to say something that's very controversial. Because it's really not popular today. You got to be meaner than the criminal.
Well, yeah.
I'll say it again. You got to be meaner than the criminal. That doesn't mean you go out and take innocent life, but dadgummit, back in the day, when we busted violent gang members, they were tied up, handcuffed on the curb. And that was on the 6 o'clock news. The public saw that and said, breathe a sigh of relief. At least they're out there taking these most dangerous people off. Because
right.
the city knows police department knows where most of these guys are. And they were going to be put away.
Yep.
And you know who else saw them? The criminal element. They got TVs too. Right now, you have these people. Clovis's 4 kids got in a car, did a joyride, putting people in danger, high-speed chase all over, to pull them over. 1 ran, they put 3. That's an example. They have absolutely no fear of the repercussions of doing what they did.
Because there are none.
This guy that went in and shot that teen mother and that 3-week-old baby, God willing, this is the horrible, egregious event that begins to change things in a big way. Because a similar incident happened in the Tower District. Mike Reynolds' daughter, yeah. Kimber.
Right.
Cold blood shot, dead for no reason. Well, they took her purse. They just shot her dead. They had the purse, didn't have to shoot her. And shot her. Well, they shot the wrong man's daughter. He created, with the help of Bill Jones and legislature, the 3 strikes you're outlaw. Right.
Right.
And which you saw violent crime plummet. Just talking about that it was coming, it started to go down, and then was passed. So you got to have a police department that's brave enough. And we're going to talk tomorrow about this quiet quitting in the police department, which I have no sympathy for whatsoever. I love my police officers, but you don't quiet quit on the job there. You hand in your badge, you go find something else to do. Don't quiet quit as a police officer. Unacceptable. But you got to have the judicial system, the sentencing. You got to take this discretion out of the judge's hands, have mandatory minimums back in place, and put the bad gunslingers away.
Yep.
And this guy, whoever shot this person, no possibility of parole.
Nope.
Because this is the kind
Life.
of thing, to me, that I really have a hard time not going Old Testament. You know what I'm saying? Eye for an eye. I've always said
absolutely.
I wouldn't be for the death penalty if you really had life without parole for some of these crimes. And I'm telling you, attempted murder, that just means you missed. You shoot somebody and they have to live like a vegetable the rest of their life, yet you don't try it as a murderer. You're in there in prison and you may get out in 20 years or less than that on good behavior. This craziness has to stop, because if you do not have a stable society, you don't have a society that can function unless you feel safe leaving your homes and interacting with people and going about. Doesn't matter if you got a good place like River Park. People are afraid to go there.
Yep. No.
Big game, sellout stadium, Bulldog football game. If you're afraid to go there.
Yep.
But those are some startling statistics, and, it's actually worse than I thought.
Yeah, it's bad.
Boy, we've had a show that started out with a cowboy fish and a cowgirl fish.
How much time
started
do you
out with a great joke. You got 30 seconds.
30 seconds. On this day.
You want to stay? Hit at me with it.
1908, the first Model T automobile rolled off the assembly line. Gas, not electric.
And I was driving it. It was a rough ride.
So your picture in there.
1908, really?
Henry Ford's assembly line.
Robert, always a chunk of heaven. Laura, thank you for calling in and your thoughts. Folks, thank you for tuning in. I love you so much. Just remember, do your best and let God do the rest. And I promise you, it'll turn out the way it's supposed to be. Love you now. Bye-bye.
Who cares about the clouds?